as I said, you have to do that. This is another one. You can demonstrate. Evaluation demonstrates something frequently. And one of the best things to demonstrate is that it's effective and efficient, especially in using your financial resources. We just started, and this is what I was saying was this is going to be a conversation. I've got just a few slides here. We're talking about why we do evaluation, and then we're simply going to sit and talk about your projects, where you're going with them, what you want to get out of them in terms of evaluation. That there was assessment at the front end when you're trying to figure out, okay, who are we doing this for? How much of it are we going to do? Et cetera, et cetera. This is coming out the back end. We've done something. How effective was it? And so these are reasons why we would do an evaluation. Okay, so it's because somebody is asking for some level of accountability that we can demonstrate that what we did was either more efficient or more effective, that it certainly was equitable in some way, that we used the money well. These I would call kind of external reasons. Somebody's usually asking us to evaluate like this. This is now I'm going to shift to things that are a little more practical and to a certain extent internal. These are the kinds of things I think we want to talk about in terms of your projects. Did it make actual change? Did it accomplish actual change or make some sort of progress? So it isn't always about change. Sometimes it's about we're on a good course or we're on a course that's sustainable. So did we make progress? Is a reasonable thing to do an evaluation to see. This is one of the ones I find most important in doing an evaluation of a project that I'm coming to the end of, which is, can I define the success factors? And the reason for that, of course, is if I can define what made this successful, what do other people think is success, then I can apply that to something the next time. That's the theme of what we wanted when we start to talk among ourselves. It's what do I do next? It's not what did I do in ILEAD U. You're going to show us that tomorrow. Okay, there's going to be a clear explanation of what you've done, how you did it, that sort of thing. But if you can identify what was successful there and what wasn't successful, I didn't put that in here, but what didn't work, is then the other part, the other half of ILEAD U, it's the lead part, is presumably you're going to go on and do other great things. Okay, so that's what I'm going to take out of this specific project in ILEAD to apply to the next thing I take on. So these are, as I say, external. These, in my mind, are somewhat more important. This is flipping. If I sort of rearrange these slides, this is not external exactly, but sometimes I've done a project I need to justify to my superiors or whatever. We were talking about this yesterday among the mentors and instructors, is going back and explaining the experience. So you can do that narratively, but you can also do it as part of something, have something a little bit more tangible to point to. And then this is what we want to talk about today. Is you do an evaluation, you do an assessment to lay the foundation for something next. And that something next may actually build on what you've done, or it may take the skills, either technical or leadership project skills, and apply those. Okay, so just a quick couple of steps, process for evaluation. And this is like when you were in school and you always, the first day of chemistry class, they always went through the scientific method. Remember that? So that's all this is. You're going to collect, organize some stuff. And that's what I want to talk about among ourselves is what is it we're going to try and gather. And again, try to match this to what we want to do with it. So yeah, come back. If all I end up with is a really pretty spreadsheet, and I can generate a bar graph here and a pie chart there, here a graph, there a graph, don't do it. Okay. I'm going to distinguish between short-term outputs, and I think some of this will probably come out tomorrow. It's kind of what is on the ground now, or shortly as you launch your project, the short-term outputs. Going back to some of those other things, what kind of transformations did it show progress, or did it show transformation? You know, what did we get out of this? These are the questions, in a sense, you're trying to answer. And then longer term, this is the harder one, and I think this is where I try to think carefully about how much of this I want to do, because this isn't scientific research. You're not publishing. I mean, you could write an article. What you're going to do tomorrow is publication in a way. It's a presentation. But in the kind of ILEAD U project, what you're trying to do with it, think long and hard before you get deeply into long-term evaluation, and if it's going to serve some purpose for you. This is, I would tie this one to the short term. Is, you know, if you can come up with short-term outputs and then think about those going forward, that'll be successful in your evaluation. Okay, that's it for slides. Okay, so what I want to do now is, are you all Presbyterians? You're not all sitting in the back, but everybody says that. The Methodists say the same thing. So just bring your chairs up here. You don't need your computers. You don't need. Okay, I think the first thing we want to do is I want you to just remind everybody else here what your project was very briefly. Like I say, tomorrow we're going to hear it soup to nuts, so just a quick update.
Our project was mainly assess the need of our community. We assessed the literacy, and definitely we have digital divide in our community, so technology. And
what community was that?
We are in Leyden Township.
Every North Leyden Township.
Cook County.
Okay.
Near O'Hare.
Okay.
We're near the airport. Near O'Hare.
Near O'Hare. Okay.
Okay.
That's in Leyden.
Yeah. And what we decided to do is partner up with the feeder schools, the public library, the park district, the community, and high school, and so we developed programming to target the K through 12 student body, and it was programming that would address literacy and technology.
Okay. All right. So now think about it in terms of some of what we were just talking about, in terms of what do you want to discover from doing that for what period of time? How long are you planning to do it? We'll come back. So
we had the educational game where they learn the research, the steps in the research process.
Okay.
And so
again, where?
Most of us are on the west side of the state, but there's one in central Illinois. But they are all academic librarians and high school librarians.
Okay.
So
Are you the group that got put together, or did you select yourselves?
we selected ourselves.
Oh, okay.
But we're just like very. So it's a different kind of community, but and it'll be interesting to see how like the game actually gets used and talk about evaluation, like how well it works for.
Okay, well, I think what we want to talk about in yours is how you're going to discover that. Is what would be useful tools for discovering if it's used, and is it fun, is it whatever.
Yeah, and we've thought about ways of, this is our first go through and our graphics and everything can be improved. We're just kind of getting it together. But in the future, if we're going to have somebody update it, the kind of the design stuff that he was talking about, that we have somebody kind of looking for the future board.
Well, our group we're made up of mostly librarians from Des Plaines Public Library, which is also near O'Hare. But I don't know where you guys are. Anyway.
Oh, we're directly south of you.
Okay.
Mannheim. Just say
Okay.
Mannheim South by Irving, we're like right there.
Okay. And then that's 3 of us. And then we have another team member at the Niles Public Library District, which we share a border with them, and patrons. And for both Niles and our library, we have pretty good historical societies that have very few, if any, resources. And at our libraries, we really have no historical materials at all. So when we get local history questions, for instance, we're at a loss. We send them to the History Center, but the History Center doesn't have things digitized. So the idea started out as just a straightforward digital collection that would be available on the web that had local history. But it since has, I don't know, we drank the Kool-Aid, I guess.
Oh, good.
Because it since has evolved into, now it's more of a digital environment that our library really is putting together, and we'll have various community entities, institutions, like for instance the schools, can create a digital collection. We'll go out and train them how to use it. We host it all, but they do the work themselves. There's a lot of small businesses in the area. We've got a little portable scanner, and you can go out with a little scanner, and they can scan whatever documents that they want. We teach them how to do that. And so
That
it's,
would be the future though, I mean, right now, our
yeah, that would be after we
my
get started
client or whatever we're gonna call it would be the history people.
and internal.
And
But it's a collaboration
There's
with
a
the
room
History
for
Center.
growth.
so you're in the same.
Yeah, we're on the
Same
same,
team.
yeah,
Okay, so I'm going to jump to you and ask you the question. The history people,
yeah.
who are they?
They're, well, actually, for a while there, before the economy went bust, they were very nice, because I used to work at now, so I kind of know the history people over there were, they're never open and they're all volunteers and part-time and getting older, you know, it's a facility, you know, but it's not a real, I don't know, professionally run building, it's a volunteer type of thing. At Des Plaines, for years, they've had a really, really great director who passed away recently, who really, really pushed them into the community, made them more viable. Actually had 3, I think, staff at one point full-time.
They do programming.
Did programming, and so they're a strong force in the community, but then they lost money from the city with, you know, so now they're down to one person who took over when the person died, the director, the founding director, I guess, maybe not founding. And so she got some interns and she's got a good strong volunteer thing, but they've always been even shorter, I guess, on time and staff than the library has. So we've in the past worked with
They're
them.
our community partners, and we're sharing the equipment we bought with the grant stuff. We're sharing with them. And so we're sharing.
So your audience, or this is a question.
Mhm.
Jeopardy here.
Right. Right.
Your project was aimed at the content people of these other organizations rather than the public, small p public?
Well, I mean, just via them. I mean, the public would be interested in this stuff that gets on a website. But I think
Right.
the history people are a great resource. They're a content provider.
So that's, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay,
No,
yeah,
good.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I understood your question correctly, it was about who's the audience and who's accessing. It's the bigger community at large, and especially Niles and Des Plaines, at least for starters. But then also, like say again, the example of the small business, where that's just for them. You know, we're not insisting that they provide access to their collection. It's just something the library's going to do, is go out to them and teach them how to do something.
And
that
who's
they
the
can
them?
manage their own.
Yeah, everybody will get their own kind of access to a client, even if they have their own.
There's a lot of
So community.
small businesses, and Joanne's active with the Chamber of Commerce.
So you would take your equipment out to the car dealer who's got
His
pictures of
invoices,
Chevys back to 1944.
Right.
You
And he could do that, yeah.
or even his invoices that he wants to turn into PDFs and OCR them. So he could,
okay.
Uh,
Okay. Well, really, that's a good. There's an assessment thing we're going to come back to in a minute.
Okay.
But we've got one state person. Remind them which state you're from.
I'm Ohio.
Ohio. Okay, Ohio.
Ohio.
Hi. And we are in, so this is my project. but evaluating this and other things like this are important. So
Yours is a slightly different take. Yours is evaluating projects you haven't done for the success measures that I was talking about to build to layer into
into
a big project.
and into my marketing. So this was successful. You guys had success reaching out to your people, and then this is why we should do it, because you guys were also successful with your projects. Which is true. That wasn't sarcasm. I'm sorry. That is true, because you guys were also successful. Now this is why we need to do it.
Okay, so let's talk about success measures, and let's start there, because that's from looking at the outside. What would you consider? You've heard them describe 3 different projects here. What would you identify as success measures for these projects?
For
That you
me,
could- that
I've
you
been,
could
I've
then-
been reading a lot about this recently, because I'm also trying to evaluate another initiative. And I need something concrete. So how many people scanned items? How many kids played the games? How many people joined in with the book talks, right? Aren't you guys doing author talks and things like that?
Yes.
How many
We're doing a
authors
lot of
did you
different
get?
things.
How many, things like that. So those numbers, but then the stories too.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about, that's great. Let's talk about numbers. When you think of evaluation, is that where you start? Is how many played the game, how many events we did, or how many, what would be a number for you?
I think initially we were a little hung up about that, but then because it's a model that something that we think it's been very successful, and it's something that we really want to continue and nurture these relationships and continue on with this project. We're figuring that that's not really how we're going to evaluate the success of it, because the people that do participate, we felt that they really got a lot out of it. And I think we were really kind of truly pleased with the collaboration of all the different age groups.
So you're not going to count as much. Yes,
I
is a perfectly
I
good
think
answer.
programming is one of those activities that you really do, numbers are an important facet of the
Why?
program.
If
I think because technically that's the way we think is, it's like you throw a party, you expect everybody that you've invited to come. So I think that participation is a huge part of it. But since this is something that it's a new kind of a model, it hasn't ever been done before in our community. There's never been this kind of collaboration between school librarians, public librarians, the community at large, and the park district. I think that as this continues, it's going to keep growing. And a lot of it is timing. That was one of the things that we really, really learned with programming, is timing. And because we had to work within the time frame that has been set forth by ILEAD U, and then, the schools all have a different activity level at different times of the year, and the same thing with the community and the public libraries. Everybody has a little bit of a different operational paradigm. So that was something else that we reflected upon was, participation is very important, but we also take into account the fact that everybody really has a lot on their plates. And so as this continues to grow and branches out, we're not really, we're not looking at numbers so much as what it is that successful or not.
So numbers for you, important, not so important?
Well, yes and no. I don't think they're the most important measure of the project, but our library board is going to want numbers.
Okay,
Yeah.
that goes back to the accountability piece that I
Yeah.
said there. So, okay, so even though this is an ILEAD U project, which has been subsidized centrally, you're feeling beholden to a couple of boards. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
because we're eventually there's going to be a budget line. This is going to be an ongoing,
Oh, okay.
like yours.
Right.
This is the beginning of something that we hope will be sustainable.
It's
Okay.
not
And
just in the
so-
local history in the sense of, well, it is, but
Right,
In
but
different
there's,
formats.
for instance, the grant money paid for equipment for the license we're going to get to Content DM. That's coming out of the library budget, so we're accountable for that. And also, we have a library board that's really interested in seeing the library interact with the community more in different ways. And because we'll be able to do that with this project, they're really interested in that. And they're going to want to know, well, how many businesses? Who were they? Did it help their business any that we did that? Or was it just a nice thing that we did?
And is there a further connection after that with the business? So after you've made that initial connection with them, are they still going to support you with different other things? Because I think that would be important.
That
What-
would be, I mean, yeah.
What are you doing that you just heard about in Aaron's talk? You've jumped into one thing he pointed to as a measure of success. Do you know what it was?
Well,
The narrative, you mean? No?
The libraries is places of creation.
Right.
well, that's what,
That's what you're really moving away from. Is
Right.
you're gonna have something here that I assume your library didn't have before.
Right.
To me it is creation. So let's think about getting around the tyranny of numbers, which is what I tend to
I
call
think
it.
a lot of the numbers is inherently tied up too with promotion. And I think like with the project that you guys are doing has an inherent value to it that I hope the library board understands. I know our local public library, Franklin Park Library, and I think also Northland, both have a really, really good digital historical archive. And so I think unless you track it on your website, who's gonna go there, but it's also a project, like you said, that's gonna grow, is gonna be useful as time goes on too, because it's a great project for schools to use, and it's, I think the board has to get beyond the idea that only the older people are gonna find it interesting.
Well, the thing is, in the last year or two, while this has been happening, because this is something we've been wanting to do before anyway, I mean, digitize a lot of things, and I had somebody come in and wanted to do a history on an orphanage that was in display, and, if they wanted to look at the local newspaper, and they thought all I had to do was just take you to a roll of film that was specifically talked about there, and I'm like, do you know what years, do you know there was a date or something was happening? It was all just rolls of film. I says, there's years and years of film.
Yeah.
Now, we've already we're actually on another committee, the digitization committee too, so we've already done some work about digitizing some current film and stuff like that. So to do this stuff in the past would be very helpful to help those people doing research. And at least twice I've had people recently want to do that kind of thing. So that's not big numbers, but the person is
yeah,
really
that would be a measure of success for us, but a library board's not gonna.
Well,
Right.
but
But the
actually
story is important.
I think
that's it. It's story.
it might. I mean, if you say this,
Maybe the
I
we don't
know.
want to get into
Yeah.
the horrible politics.
Well, I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but I do in terms of, because I really do think you're trying to incorporate not a new paradigm, which is an overused, fuzzy word in a lot of cases, but you're trying to. I mean, I just really.
We're trying to get away from, I call it the public library model that's, hey, here we are, we've got cool stuff, please come use it, to, here, we'll just do this for you.
What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And and what we're saying here is there's a new thing in it for you. It's, so yeah, rather than say we digitized so many images, or we contacted this many businesses or whatever through the chamber, it's more about storytelling. And I think let's go back over here. It sounds like you're going more in the storytelling route to do your evaluation. Is that fair? How are you gonna?
Yes and no, I think. I think we're looking at a lot of different levels for evaluation, and it was really, I think it was an enormous learning experience for us.
What would some of those levels be?
Besides just numbers, but, say customer satisfaction, the people that did attend, we were really interested in feedback. And so that was, so far very positive. And the teachers and clubs and other people that were involved, I think it was an enriching experience for everybody. So that would be one other way that we were evaluating. And is this something that everybody wants to continue? And so far, yes.
And you could connect those two. Because you had this many people attend, and this is the stories they all told. You might only have 3 people come to an event, but if they all had an awesome time,
That's the
And you
tyranny
share
of
that
numbers I
story.
want to get past, right?
And you had 3 people come to an event, and then this is what I learned and how I'm going to do better for the next event. too.
Right.
So there's personal improvement too.
Okay.
I think library as place is really going to be more and more important, that having the library provide an arena for whatever is just more important in our communities than ever. And I'm wondering if one of the things that you could all use is whether or not you've touched people who never used the library before.
Right.
And I think that might be, if you've got people either coming in or participating in programs that that never ever did anything with the library, I think that's tremendously important. I really do.
Trying to knit a bunch of things together from your whole ILEAD U experience. Do you remember Beck's talk, right? Anybody remember how she was showing, measuring success? There was a little microscope thing that they had where you could look at your skin and whatever. They did the event, remember, and they had the adults come in. It wasn't the kids, they had the adults come in and play with it at night. How did she evaluate? She said, if I remember correctly, she said, oh, there were about 100 people there or something. They obviously didn't do a door count or anything like that. But what did she do? What did she do? You saw it. She took pictures.
Oh.
Okay? Have you taken any pictures of people digitizing stuff? Your game, this would be ideal, I'm assuming,
Yes.
you're gonna have people hunched over a game or whatever.
Yes.
That's something to take back to your board that, to me, in terms of a measure of success, goes beyond a column of numbers saying we digitized so many things. I can say it. Two geezers huddled over, scanning something is one thing, better yet a geezer and his granddaughter scanning something, but you see what I'm saying? So I want to go back to your game. How are you are you throwing it out on the wind, or are you making them come to you to play it? How is the actual game getting out there?
For me, it will be in my library. So we bought the software to make the game and then a projector. So when my students come to the library, we can play the game and go through the research steps with them. So they will be there. I probably have some help take pictures if I'm teaching,
Sure.
but they can, they can play the game and we can go through it and they can learn from it. So part of it will be whether or not the students can learn from the game, which isn't necessarily a number unless you're like, they got 5 of the 6 steps correct when you try to put them in order. But students.
Yeah, well, there's some of that, but okay. So you've got a game where there's a learning objective.
Right.
You can use some more traditional techniques in terms of there, and so now we're going to talk about some other evaluation techniques. When you're going into your project, again, I don't know if any of you went to the assessment incoming end of it that I did. You're trying to get community need. What are the tools that I suggested you use going in to find out about community need and that sort of and levels of expertise? Surveys, interviews, focus groups, those sorts of traditional techniques. Those all can be used on the outcoming end as well. So like interviews, I would suggest, or even if you've actually for yours where you might be hitting a bunch of different things, an actual focus group might be good because then you could have a conversation, but certainly interviews. Yours on the outcoming end, okay, the class is 45 minutes or whatever it is, you're going to play the game for half an hour, and then you're going to ask them some questions about, did you like the game? Did you learn something from the game? See whether there's anything that you can pull back. If there's any way to have the attention of that set of students a week later and see whether they retained anything, or would be interested in playing the game a second time.
Right.
Even better, that sort of thing. For yours, how do you think?
Well, going back to what you said about Beck, actually Beck was partially kind of an inspiration for our project because we liked her unique perspective. And one of the other things that we gauged, our evaluation on was it successful enough that they wanted more? And yes, with the Skyping was like a whole new experience for all of the students that were involved.
Really?
And so,
Really?
yeah. Well, the little ones had never done it before, and it was really an overwhelmingly positive experience. And the high school students hadn't had an opportunity to ever Skype with their mother either. So, this was something that we introduced them to, and they really liked it, so that now they can't get enough. So we're planning a lot more Skyping this year with the various aspects of our community. So that would be another way to evaluate was this successful enough where there was demand for more. So
And this is where what I was talking about is how does this lead into a next project or whatever. That's what
Yes,
you're-
well, that, and I think we're kind of learning as we go, and I think with programming, like, as I said, I mentioned before, timing is a lot of it, collaboration is, it's a lot of work. And I think as we continue to work together and we continue to, launch a program and then go back and reflect and discuss it, we kind of have an idea of what our community wants. And so that's another way that we can evaluate what the future program is going to be, be able to take it to the next level. And the geocaching too was the first time students had ever done anything like that in our community. And, it was nice because it was an activity that really pulled in, boys are our reluctant readers and middle school and high school boys are kind of like the market that's the hardest to get participation. They freaking loved it. And we loved it. It was a gas. I mean, it was really, we had a blast with it. So, it was such a new experience for us in so many ways, and we're just thinking that we want to continue. So when we kind of think of it as, it's not anything that is a set model, it's fluid and it's in motion, and we do think of it as being part of this conversation. And where is the conversation going? And it's really being directed by our community, by our participants.
I think, and as long as you have that continuous assessing and evaluating and communicating, you can make it sustainable, but something that changes.
So we had an opportunity to experiment with Skype during the week, because what we want to do now is Skype with our literacy department, and we want to be able to Skype two campuses at the same time. Rather than having to bring the busload of kids to one campus, can we do like a 2 or 3-way Skype? So that went well, so we're looking forward to doing that. So it's just, we're seeing, we're trying to change the idea of what is a librarian? What does a librarian do? That's a huge part of it.
Right. You're out from behind the desk.
Yeah.
Where's your next? Are you guys looking at a next?
I think our big next will be continuing to develop the game. Like last time we were here, they were talking about like another grant we could apply for just to finalize it more, and really get it ready to be used more than it is right now.
Are there other aspects of what your team did and what it learned that might be something other than a game? Can you, are you thinking about?
Oh, well, since we have the software now to make the apps and everything,
Right.
I've already talked to like my technology coordinator and just like the library, we wanted to have mobile app for our webpage. So we can use the software now that we have for other things, maybe than just the game. We can use it to make other projects.
Angry librarians and stuff.
Books are flying at you on the shelf.
Put them in order as they fly off.
It's doing decimal.
Yeah, kind of. And one of the ways that we hope to be able to use it is it's online, and so many of the other ones that are academic librarians, their courses are going online, so they can't go into the classroom and show them this is how you use this resource. But if they have a game, then the teachers can use that online with their students.
So what's really good here is we've got a couple of really good models of how this goes out. Yours is kind of what I call organic. You've kind of taken what you're learning, have learned in this, and are just kind of letting it naturally. What seems to be expressing itself as the interest and the need, that's where you're going to go. You took it because you had some institutional support to incorporate this into a program. Those are both really viable models, and I think that's what you want to understand here is that that's either one of those is good. There's a third model which is, and then maybe you talked about this, maybe going out and looking for additional external support to do another, kind of circumscribed a project that would have a beginning, middle, and end, kind of like an ILEAD U project. That's also perfectly viable. What else would you like to talk about in terms of the kind of evaluation to kind of take you out? Because I've got another direction I want to go here, but I don't want to drop out.
I guess part of it, and I don't know if I'm skipping to the end, but part of it is putting it all together. Because I know that I'm officially the project manager for the digital initiative. So I want to know how the project's going. I want to know how individual pieces of the project's going. You know, I do want to know how many files the History Center uploaded in a week, but I also want to know who did we teach something that they didn't know before, and are they using it? You know, so there's like little tangibles and intangibles, and then I've got all this information, and then how do I take all that, take myself a picture of? Do you understand?
I do.
Like I've got,
And that
instead
actually,
of cherry picking stuff, how do I make that into a pie?
okay, that actually segues into where I wanted to go,
Okay.
which is what you individually as leaders are evaluating to take out of this. Okay, so I'd actually, personally, I suggest that your evaluation needs to start with your team. As you're coming to the end of the project, you know, there's no requirement. The state library, I don't think, asks for a formal report of the end product here. But I don't know whether sometimes, like last year, the number of the projects had capstone events, kind of things like that. But have you thought about, is your team going to continue to meet after Thursday? You know, I don't know what the answer to that is, but my suggestion is that you look internally first, and it can go formally like this, or having a little conversation like this, I think would be very useful to what I think is one of the benefits, one of the things you can take away from ILEAD U is not what did I learn, but what can I use. And I think you've now got a group of people that you've worked with for 9 years. For 9 years. They seem like 9 years. 9 months.
9 years.
And I hope you feel that you can be honest with each other. So, you know, evaluation isn't all about, you know, it's, God, that crashed and burned in a horrific way, and we got past it, or you know, we went in the ditch for a month, and then we you know, somebody came and pulled us out, and we went on, and you know, all of that kind of overcoming the hurdles is, you know, one of the best things to get out of something like this, is you realize that the world doesn't end. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to see, if you thought about this, if you were planning to do that, and kind of how you were going to evaluate for yourselves. Have you thought about doing that?
I mean, we've kind of already been talking about, like, how do we think this is going, and where are we going next, you know? Because you can kind of do that in any kind of project. Like, we're reflecting on how it is, but now, getting towards the end, I mean, we have one member that's expecting, you know, like, what can she do as we go forward? You know, she's going to have a lot of things occupying her time here, you know, as we go along. So sitting down and saying, all right, this is where we're at. Can you find the time to continue to meet and move forward? I think would be a good conversation.
And I think I'm not necessarily suggesting that it has to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing about evaluation. The right amount is a good thing. You know, evaluating for evaluating's sake is tiresome. It's work. So, you know, it's not that I'm talking about fun here necessarily, but sitting down and, you know, kind of as the game has been rolled out, it's been, you know, it's been everywhere it's supposed to be at least once, or that sort of thing, is, okay, you know, what did you get out of this? You know, what one thing, what one skill did you develop? What insight did you have? What do you think you'd like, you know, is there something here that I think, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to go and try to take this out into the community in a completely different way. It has nothing to do with this, but it's something I got confident in the ability to do. How am I going to institutionalize what I did? Now, and in fact, is that if you think as a project manager you need some hard data, okay, how are you going to gather that hard data? What tools are you going to use?
No idea.
Okay.
I mean, I know the softer stuff. I know. You know, say if I train Joanne on something, can she do it? Can she train someone on that? You know, it's like I can talk to people to get that stuff. But you know, like I said before, X many files were uploaded to by the History Center or whoever that week. That doesn't really mean anything. That's just why it's something to report.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. I feel like I'm the school, but my principal the other day, he's like, so you have any reports you want to give me? Well, what do you want? There's not a point for me to like just be like, this is how many books were checked out. Like, you know, like there's more to that. So sometimes it's hard to know what numbers you're looking at.
Yeah.
I just feel that our project is, the more like the stories and all that stuff, that doesn't happen until much further along. We're still
We're still, I don't know if I said, we're waiting for per capita money to buy our license. So we're planning and planning and planning and planning and planning and planning.
and
But
we're ready to go any second.
planning.
But you've done something, right? I mean,
We
stuff's
have,
been
and
digitized.
there's a background. I know
Backstory.
about Digital Past and
Yes.
anyone that was in NSLS. Okay, so I was active in that, and before that, I worked as a consultant for Skokie Public Library when they were just starting their digital collection. So I have a progression myself, and so I think I know about how to train people and so forth. And it's like, I feel like I have all that in place, and then we always talk about those Rumsfelds. There's the known unknowns and unknown unknowns. Trying to see all the spheres and where they're coming together. But then all of a sudden, someday they're going to be like, okay, here's your money, get the license, and then we go. And so we don't really know for sure. We have plans, but we don't really know for sure. I'm
Sorry,
fairly
yeah.
confident.
So I think our measurements are gonna come maybe next year, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are any of your directors coming to the presentations tomorrow?
No.
I don't think so. I know some of our administrators really did want to come, but
We did a presentation to our department heads because they didn't really
yeah.
know what we were doing.
Mine-
So we better
mine's
explain
my
it to them. So. And our community partner at the Des Plaines Historical Society couldn't come, but they're definitely our main collaborator to begin with, along with the Niles Public Library, who are kind of developing their own parallel thing that we have to fit together somehow. But we're really going to be collaborating with the History Center first. But it'd be nice if she could come.
we know they're all going to be watching the presentation.
Yeah, right.
To see if it was worth it, giving us all this time off and
Right.
stuff, so. But see, I think for us, we feel that the partnerships that we formed is something that's gonna remain. We're gonna take that away from it for sure, and it's something, we're gonna continue to develop programming with each other because, there's library benchmarks and technology skill benchmarks that we're, trying to make sure students meet, and it's just a really good and fun way for them to meet that.
So you think you're going to collaborate with the people. So what you've taken away from this is the ability to both actually.
I think our team's gonna remain,
Mhm.
in other words. I mean, we all work near each other, and so I think that, after going through this year, we appreciate the value of collaborating together for the benefit of the students, and so I think it's gonna continue.
So
We're planning on it.
So will you go out? I mean, obviously you learned the skills of building this team. It was because you had this to come to that you did that. Are you going to go out and look for other teams to build? Not with these people. You're going to use those
I don't
skills.
know, I think we're probably gonna stay within our community.
Why?
Because we feel the need has not been certainly met. I mean, it's gonna be an ongoing need. The need of literacy and the need of supplying technology where it's needed, that's gonna continue in our community. So we're gonna continue to try to meet that need. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say you've developed, however, these real teamwork building skills. I think that's something you can also bring to your institute, your library, your community. Don't underestimate taking that away as an as a success measure. And
That's true.
yeah, so I think that would apply to all of you. It's that set of skills, within the kind of more construction of leadership that you also don't want to. Yeah, the need remains to be met. You've got an active and obviously enthusiastic group to.
We do, because before ILEAD U, there was just general articulation meetings, but nothing ever really came of it historically over the years. And we also articulated with Triton College, with the librarian there, but again, nothing really came of it. So actually doing something with Triton might be a logical next step, where we could partner up with, because a lot of our students go there now. So that might be an interesting road to take as well.
There's a media arts department there.
Yeah, Yeah,
too. So-
yeah.
So now instead of waiting for the state library to say we've given you the opportunity to put this team together, you're now the leader. You're not the one who needs to go out there.
Yeah, it might be, we might need to have one more person on this team, and it might be maybe a librarian for training and see how we can staff them up a little bit.
How about you?
As you were talking, I was trying to think of other places, if it would be with like different teams and committees that I'm at school, if we could add another person. I'm thinking, well, we have our technology committee, and now we've partnered with the elementary and the high school, and we have a couple teachers, and then now maybe we need to get like a community partner, and just continue to build up another team I'm already on, maybe not a new team, but to actually get that team growing and coming up with some new conversations.
If you ever watch the old movies on PCM, if they ever had Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney. Once my dad's got a barn, let's go put on a show. Well, you're now Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney, you know. So that's you need to not think that this is just based in this. So is there?
For us, it's, and again, you know, Paul from Niles, the other team member isn't here, but you know, one of the things that was difficult with ILEAD U being a team is we had 3 people at one library, and so we were really solid, and we're all full-time, and then Paul is part-time with very few hours over at the other library, so that means he's on the desk all the time. He had a hard time getting anything going over there at first because of that. So, you know, going forward, it's hard to know how that'll work over time. However, we now have started a digital collection we may not have had before the